have this desire, this dream. I want to be an evangelist. I want to be like a black Billy Graham. My walk with the Lord, it started out just very, very serious. I was so broken when he found me.
How did you become a Christian?
Man, I was, this is widely known, but, I was raised in Queens, New York, born to Christian parents, but was in a very urban environment. That environment had a lot of influence on my life. And so most of my days were spent in the street. And, and that's not any fault of my parents. They did the absolute best they can do. But I was just drawn to the community outside of my home. So I pretty much lived a very dark life. I probably went out into the street maybe around the age of 12. And I lived a dark life until I had to leave New York because of legal trouble around age 18. Ended up in North Carolina, continued that dark path for another decade. And it was a season in my life where I was very hopeless, very empty. Around the age of 24, I attempted suicide once, which was unsuccessful. By the grace of God, he sent someone to my apartment that night that kind of, their presence talked me off a ledge. And it was in that season when I was suicidal and hopeful when Jesus found me in a bathroom over a toilet seat and brought me into the kingdom personally for himself. And so that's how I got saved.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, what was that experience like when Jesus was encountering you? Like for you, what did that look like?
Man, for me, and this story is widely known. I was my girlfriend at the time, who became my wife, got into a car accident. We was living together, so obviously we was doing everything wrong. We wasn't saved, and she came back to the apartment and she put on gospel music, and it was the first time in my life I ever heard gospel music. And she had her hands raised and she was thanking God for her life. And I was staring at her walk back and forth, and I thought to myself, whatever that is, I want that. It seemed like joy, it seemed like peace, it seemed like all the things I did not have, right? So when I crawled into that bathroom, I started yelling at God. I did not know God existed, right? I saw my parents pray, I saw my parents serve God, but I did not understand his existence. And so when God met me in that bathroom that day, it was like I had tears of sorrow that dried up. I knew that something had transpired in my heart. I think for the first time, I felt peace. And that night I tried to lay with my girlfriend, and now for the first time, I felt conviction for sin, right? So I knew something had transpired in my heart. And then I began to read the scriptures just very, very aggressively. I started out in Proverbs, and then I read Daniel, and then I read Revelation. I don't know why I went in that order. But my walk with the Lord, it started out just very, very serious. I was so broken when he found me, and I was in so much darkness. Everything in me wanted to just pursue him. Anything I do 100. I do all the way. I don't do it halfway at all. So when the Lord saved me, I was just radically set on fire for the Lord. And it doesn't mean I made mistakes in the beginning, things that I regret. But I went after Jesus with my whole heart from the very beginning.
Do you think that's where kind of your fire for this urgency of the gospel kind of birth? Because I mean, from the beginning of your walk with Jesus, it's like, okay, here's some practical wisdom, and then here's what's going to go down one day.
Yep.
Do you think that's where that all birthed?
I do. I do think that played a big role in my ministry and in my life. That was also around the time Mel Gibson had put out The Passion of the Christ.
Yeah, gosh, that movie's great.
Right? And so that was the first movie I saw post-salvation.
Oh,
right?
snap.
So that movie had just come out. My wife and I went to go see that movie, and I remember walking out of that movie in tears. I didn't talk for a week. Right, I didn't talk to what she was my girlfriend at the time. I didn't talk to Lena for a week. I didn't talk to anybody. I was so overwhelmed by that movie. So I had just seen The Passion of the Christ. At the same time, I'm reading through the book of Revelation. I'm reading Daniel. So that kind of marked me from the very beginning. So for me, and I would look back on this and think that maybe it was God's providence that led me to those particular books. So from the very beginning, I always had my mind fixed on the end.
Yeah.
There was always something in me that was thinking about the end, thinking about eternity, thinking about the judgments at the end, thinking about the rewards for believers at the end. So that was always in the back of my mind from the very beginning. And I think God wanted it to be that way, at least for me, right? And so also to seeing the Passion of the Christ, those graphic images of the final hours of the life of Jesus really marked me, right? And so the cross had a great weight for me from the very beginning. Right.
Wow.
From the very beginning, the cross was meaningful to me. Although I did not fully understand the depth of the holiness of Christ and the full ramifications of what he did on the cross until I came back from Israel. But from the very beginning, I was marked by what happened on the cross. And so I think it had a deep effect on me. And I would say that was really my foundation from the very beginning, right?
Wow.
The cross, the end times, thinking about eternity, those words that Jesus sent to those 7 ancient churches, essentially he sent 7 copies of the book of Revelation to 7 churches. And that was in my heart from the very beginning. So I do think it was type of a guide and light of sorts. In conjunction with reading Proverbs and understanding the importance of God's wisdom above man-made wisdom. Although that did not save me from making mistakes, those things were in me from the beginning. And I think the Holy Spirit would water that over time.
Oh my goodness. I literally 2 nights ago, I watched Passion of the Christ again.
Yeah.
And so when you're saying that, I'm here because it's fresh on my mind. You know, like you could watch a movie from a while, hey, I love that movie, but then you watch it again and you catch some extra details. And I'm just thinking about when he's getting flogged with the cat of 9 tails right now. I can't even imagine watching that fresh into surrender to Jesus and then reading the book of Revelation where, you know, that always blows my mind when John's like, I look to heaven and there's the lamb that was slain on the throne.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I mean, what was that like? Did you kind of put those 2 pieces together?
Yeah, I think for me, the impact that had on me is that around that time, I was also introduced to the ministry of Billy Graham. My mother and I attended his very last crusade. Billy Graham's final crusade was held in Queens, New York. And so around this time, I also had a chance to go. His last crusade I think it was around 2005. So when you put all these things together, I had just seen the Passion of the Christ. I had just finished reading the book of Revelation. I had read Daniel. I'm reading through Proverbs. And at the same time, my mother and I would go see Billy Graham's last crusade. And so from the very beginning, there was not only a deep impact that has happened in my heart as it relates to the cross, but then there is a desire to let as many people as possible know about what Jesus has done on the cross. And so I have this desire, this dream. I want to be an evangelist. I want to be like a black Billy Graham, right? And I would ask God in my prayer time, could you ever use a black man like at the level use of Billy Graham to take the gospel to the world? And so that was my dream in the beginning, to be an evangelist. I was so marked by the movie and so marked by Revelation that everything in me just wanted to tell as many people about Christ as possible. In my shyness in the beginning, I remember I made these little cards. They were like business cards. I mean, people don't really use them as much today, and at least not your generation. Y'all just tap phones and share contacts. But I made this little card. On one side, it had from Romans an explanation of like Romans 3:23, 6:23, Romans 10, what we used to call the Romans Road was on one side. And then a prayer of salvation on the other side. And I was shy in the beginning with sharing my faith. So I would go through places and I would just toss that card at people. I would go through the drive-through McDonald's and toss the card through the drive-through window. You know, I'll be at a restaurant. I will always slip it in the thing when I'm at a restaurant. So everywhere I was going, I was leaving those cards. And that was my first attempt at sharing the gospel. When I got a little bolder, I would go into parks. I would stand on park benches and I would just preach the gospel to anybody that would listen.
Wow.
Right. I would walk the street and I would preach the gospel to anybody that walked by. Right. Long before there was a platform, a pulpit, a camera, I was preaching the gospel. I was just so burned by what was going to happen in the end, in conjunction with what I saw Jesus suffer on the cross, and reading those things. My heart was just, I need to tell as many people about Christ as possible. Now, I don't think that ever left me, although God called me to the pastorate grudgingly. I didn't want to be a pastor. So I don't think that ever left me. Even now as a local pastor, in my heart, I am an evangelist. I am most excited when I'm talking about the cross. I'm most excited when I'm glorifying what Christ done for us on the cross, right? So I think that evangelist is in there, right? Although God called me to do something I did not want to do, I pastor out of obedience, not out of glory. But that's what that was like for me. There was a burning from the very beginning to tell as many people as possible about Christ.